Welcome to Spread Love and Organizations, the healthcare leadership podcast where we explore leadership with purpose. I'm Naji, your host, joined today by Christy Fernandez-Cull, CEO of DaVinci Wearables and former leader of sensing teams at Waymo, Google Self-Driving, and Lyft's self-driving division. Christy played a key role at Apple, contributing to autonomous systems and releasing the first LiDAR module in the 2020 iPad. She has spanned both the development of defense technologies at MIT Lincoln Lab and at-scale consumer product technologies at Apple. Christy advises VCs and startups in mobility, autonomous vehicles, and digital health, and serves on several boards. She holds a PhD from Duke University and an MBA from MIT and lectures at Columbia University and MIT. Christy, it's just so good to see you again and have you with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm delighted.
I want to first hear more about your personal story from childhood to tech and now being an incredible entrepreneur in the health tech world.
Well, thank you so much. For me, my journey started as a little girl. My parents, this quote isn't theirs, but it was something that we held true in our family. Outside of family always being first and having a foundation on faith. It was really, if not you, then who, if not now, then when. So it was this notion of, even if you see doors closed, build a doorknob or find another door. And so a lot of our family values is really what anchors me on a day-to-day. And this notion of being a dreamer and trying to understand and, really kneel into information and data and knowledge. Truth be told, knowledge being the root of a whole lot of power with, of course, not power over. And a lot of my creativity, when I was a little child, actually, I didn't come from a family of engineers. In fact, they were a family and still are a family of entrepreneurs and property managers leaning into real estate. But as every child on a Saturday, what do they want to do? They sort of want to wake up mom and dad, run downstairs and start the day at the top of the morning, which for me was about 6 a.m. My parents worked in New York City and lived in New Jersey. And so you can imagine the traffic now, it's about 2 hours each way. The traffic then was not all that different. And so while I wanted to get up, mom and dad wanted to sleep, rightfully so, because they were two very hardworking parents. And so at a very young age, long story short is, I was a little bit shorter, or a lot shorter, more petite, and I couldn't reach the door handle. It was a little high, nor could I reach the location of where the bowls were. And so that, to be honest, started my journey in, when I was in, I think it was like fifth grade, I decided to build a cereal dispenser. I didn't know how, and my parents didn't know how, but what they did know was there was a hobby shop over at the next town. And of course, I imagined lasers and, a variety of different mechanics and levers and pulleys to be able to pour bowls or cereal into bowls and milk into those cereal bowls for every little girl, right, that wanted to wake up on Saturday mornings, but didn't want to wake their parents up because then they would be told to get back to bed. Anyway, that was sort of my, small example of how you can dream of something, want it to become a reality, and not just solve it or resolve it for yourself from your childhood dream, but, for every other, child or little girl out there.
I love that. So did you do it actually?
I did actually, yeah. I built, and, my father helped me. I'm convinced in another life, he would have been an engineer. My parents have always been super patient. And if they didn't have the answers, they would try to find someone who could help me. And that persists to this very day. So yes, I did build it for my fifth grade science fair. And a lot of my teachers were in disbelief. They're like, no, you didn't build this, right? Why would you build something like this? But yeah, that was my journey into trying to understand physics and engineering. Yeah.
This is awesome, and obviously you said like it's engineering since very early and entrepreneurship practically as you build
Yeah.
this. I don't know if you sold it at school, but it's a great way to start the entrepreneurship journey too. And then you went to Apple, worked on iPad, autonomous vehicles, and now
Yes.
wearable. What is kind of
Yes.
like the common thread beyond engineering or the technical aspect of it? Is there any common thread in your journey?
Yeah, I would say, I in some ways was reprimanded, not by my parents, but by school of always having my head quite literally in the clouds. I would look at the window, outside the window during school, and I would look up at the clouds because I was intrigued by how they cast a shadow on my, white paper that I was supposed to be taking notes on. And I've always been very curious and asked way too many questions. And while in middle school, that was viewed as you're going to get in trouble. And this is another example. My parents came in, right? And rather than, saying, okay, Christy, you shouldn't be looking at the clouds, they actually questioned the teacher, right? So I come from a home of that support and foundation of my voice matters and that independence matters. And so the common thread here is this notion of perpetual curiosity really lends itself hand in glove into whatever folks might think is impossible to try to make it possible. And that certainly resonates with, Apple, right? Them counteracting IBM at the time of think versus think different, right? And so a lot of the common themes and what I've been had the privilege and been blessed to be part of is how can we think about the problem space differently to leverage technology in order to create consumer-facing solutions that can surprise and delight. So to me, that's the common thread. So what was a negative in middle school all of a sudden became this, ever-flowing sense of positive energy and creativity, which again I hold with me to this very day. Yeah.
And this is actually something. Unfortunately, a lot of times we start framing kids and making them stop questioning, ask questions. Like
Yes.
we're both parents. Sometimes it's too hard
Yes.
to ask like the answer the 100 question during the day. But you're bringing such an important example and reminder, right? Like this curiosity and asking questions and dreaming and looking up the sky is
Yes.
can grow into who you are today. Tell us and make us dream about your work at DaVinci Wearables. I know we connected during school, and I've seen it really born, but it's been a while we didn't chat where you're at with
Yes.
this journey and what you're building.
Yes, absolutely. So, at 15,000 foot view, we want to be the body API for better health. And what that really entails is, imagine if, when we wake up in the morning, right? We really don't think twice about putting on clothing. A, legally we have to wear clothes when we leave the building. But B, it's almost like our source of comfort, right? So when we think about how to line ourselves with body intelligence, right? Because we lack the insight to this very day, there isn't a user experience that allows us to know when we lack hydration, right? We can all like go to the restroom and see the color of our urine and gauge that, right? But there isn't this real time feedback to say, what are my hormones telling me as I age, which is pretty critical in particular for females because we're constantly in a state of change post puberty, right? And understanding your hormones, understanding your hydration, understanding your nutrition, um, you know, us as little girls post puberty, there's a huge focus on how not to have children too early. There really isn't this source of education and physical education of here's how your body is changing. It's a beautiful thing. Here's how you work out with your body from a mental, physical, and social standpoint. And so at DaVinci, when we talk about being the body API, it's aggregating data from what consumers are wearing today to bring them from the present into the future, where it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Our clothing will quite literally tell us a lot about our biomarkers so that it's a persistent, proactive awareness instead of what it feels like today, which is something's wrong with me. I don't love going to the OBGYN. I don't think anyone does. and you're trying to really figure out the root of how you feel. And because you don't have this file and data set that you can bring, right, to the medical professional, they're also trying to figure it out with you based on correlations and lookup tables from their training, right? So imagine if you had garments, right? So as we aggregate data from smart bands, smart watches, et cetera, we're also infusing a gateway where everyday apparel, athleisure apparel, is actually lined with intelligence, right? And that's a gateway into the DaVinci platform. So that was a mouthful, but that's where we are, and that's the vision that, that's the future that we see.
That's a powerful vision, especially as you said, you're really working for women's health, women's tech, which is for years and still is unfortunately very badly studied because of all
Yes.
the biases and mainly men's health being in all those trials. So, as your first, which stage are you? Do you have? Are you starting to prototype? Are you starting to any
Great
people
question.
using it?
Yeah, so we're chatting with, a lot of the market segments that we're focused on to date, and then I'll highlight the beachhead as the first is universities and colleges. When those universities and colleges are also tethered to health ecosystems and organizations, as an example. So one example would be Indiana University and Indiana University Health. I'm choosing Indiana because we happen to be headquartered in Indiana and operations in Cambridge. And then so that ecosystem works hand in glove with a potential pilot with Elevance Health as an example, right? So it's colleges and universities, it's health ecosystems, and then it's we mentioned garments being sort of the gateway into the DaVinci platform, so that would be athleisure partnerships. So that's where we are today. We have we're B2B SaaS, a subscription as a service platform. And so right now we're preparing for some pilots with a couple hundred individuals that are really aligned with that sort of flywheel that I just mentioned, right? A college, a university, a health organization within the ecosystem. So future's bright for us. We're excited. We do have our champions that get early access to our beta mobile application, which is where we aggregate data, like I said, from smart bands and smartwatches. Now the activity tracker and the liners, so that we're lining, it's sort of like an hourglass shape, any sort of apparel. That's we're fundraising at the moment. That's we definitely have the patent moat, but in terms of the manufacturing, we have some prototypes.
This is great. Congrats for all
Thank
those
you.
advancements.
Thank you.
As you're thinking through this, because we talked obviously again about important. I love how you framed it, like body API for better health for women. There is, I imagine, a lot around also the education about how to use this data because
Yeah.
it's like we're not used to have such metrics
hmm
and what to do with them, what to do with them. Like, are you also providing, because immediately you get into like health education, etc., which is another
Yes.
big topic, obviously, in this field. Are
Yes.
you providing this too?
Yeah, great question. So when we think about the three things that the mobile application is doing, not just endeavoring to do, it's to understand, right? To learn by asking questions, and then to act. So at the top of our mobile application, we know where the female is in her menstrual cycle, whether it be 28, 29 days or otherwise. And we're not only tracking, and this is human in the loop, right? What have you been drinking? So we use computer vision machine learning algorithms to automatically detect the caloric intake, how much you're hydrated, and then we do a corrected body mass index scan. And then we also have our DaVinci Companion. So our DaVinci Companion knows your history because your wearables, right, dictate not only your heart rate history, but your physical activity history. And we're able to basically nudge and say, here are some activities that you might want to entertain because of where you are in your cycle. Now, in terms of the education aspect, We do have sort of a, Reddit, not that you're, tagging, but sort of a Reddit for women's health. So we've created our own correlation engine, data mining, tons of resources in the internet, but having a human in the loop, so a medical committee looking in to see, how valid is this research with regards to which topic associated with women's health outside of the menstrual health topic. And so you as the individual can ask questions in private, ask questions anonymously in our groups, riffing off of what to expect when you're expecting. It's what to expect going through puberty, what to expect in your 20s and your 30s and 40s. And, while they might not know, that is the medical committee won't know it's Christy Cull asking this question, they'll know it's a female in this age range who's asking this question. Is it prognostic, diagnostic? That's not our intention at this point in time because we're data starved. But at least, we have folks weighing in and looking at the questions being asked. So we call it our DaVinci companion. And it's our own correlation engine trained on questions, trained on data and research articles in a variety of fields for women's health. So that's added, that's embedded, is this educational aspect. And then you get rewarded for asking questions, for doing workouts, for reading articles. So we marry the qualitative with the quantitative in a lighthearted, like emoji style. Did you like your run? Did you like the article, et cetera?
That's fascinating. So, and you said something, DaVinci companion, like
Yes.
practically that's the vision, like getting and helping out as a companion women throughout their journey from puberty to adulthood.
Yeah, we want to democratize that. Right now, to get a lot of these insights, you have to go to these technology first spas or proactively go to these centers where you're tethered to a variety of devices. And so, in our vision and world, right, if you're aligning yourself with DaVinci and getting that body intelligence, I can right now on the phone with you, right, say, and we do have voice to text and text to voice embedded in the journal entry and in the article query. It would say, hey, DaVinci, I'm on day 6. What is the heart rate zone? Because I'm about to go, on a run shortly after the call. And it would do the voice to text, natural language processing. It would analyze my data. It would analyze the different heart rate zones versus when I cycle versus when I run. And it would say, hey, Christy, you should really hone in on, heart rate zone 2 for this amount of time and then peak at heart rate zone 3. Just as an example, it sounds a little more complicated, but you could also ask it, hey, what's the day of my cycle and how much more hydrated should I be or what should I eat? And that's sort of the use case goal, right?
I want to ask you more a question about your journey as an entrepreneur now. And is there any one advice you will give a female founder in the health tech world?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of folks, highlight, hey, there's so many no's that you're going to receive, and outside of just thinking about how many no's, I think if you're being empathetic and focused on the customer versus the product of what you want to create, because there are many products that don't see the light of day, but ensuring that you're iterating with your customer and that, your heart is in the right place is really all that matters. And understanding how to fail quickly, as counterintuitive as that sounds. And, when you need to feel inspired, this is way too many tidbits, but if you need to feel inspired, go directly to your customer. A lot of the times where, let's face it, everyone has second thoughts. I am no different like anyone else, which is there are these moments of inspiration where, I'll have conversations with our champions or word of mouth new folks that want to be champions, and they really hone in on, wow, I wish I had this like yesterday, or wish I had this in college. And I'm excited to be part of this. A lot of folks have just volunteered their time, and I just feel like that's a huge blessing and inspiration. Well, and a lot of the times they don't realize like they're inspiring me in that very moment, but try to find those nuggets of inspiration to keep you going. Yeah, and remember why you started what you were doing. Yeah, that's what I would say. That was probably like 5 things in one, and I know you asked for one.
No, but
Yeah.
this is great. And actually, you're touching something super important, obviously, in healthcare. As you know, like I've been in this field for years. I love how you framed it. It's when you need to be inspired, go to your customer.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It reminds you of your purpose, and it reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. And this is part of what you're doing in the health tech world. Any learning or thoughts moving from you worked for large corporations, you brought really breakthrough innovations in these and kind of futuristic views to now being an entrepreneur, starting up yourself by yourself, and now building a full team and company with this vision. Any major learning?
Yeah, I would say, it is hard. And all the things that I've worked on, I would say starting a company, and sales in particular, right, is extremely hard. And so I think what's important is not just to think about your customer and the product that you're trying to bring to however small or big, really change the world. And in this case, women's health. It's a long time in coming to kind of flip the switch and script on how it gets funded and addressed, let alone just including women in clinical trials, is to understand your own individual differentiation, right? What is your unique value proposition, and what makes you stand out as an individual compared to others who do what you do, right? So it's okay if at some point along your journey you're like, you know what? This just isn't for me. Like I said, I think introspectively, right, we should also assign ourselves objectives and key results and keep ourselves honest to our mission and vision. And I think equally important, if not more, is thinking about the selfless act of you're putting this energy in for that greater good. And so part of that is being empathetic with others, but also being empathetic to yourself, right? Acknowledging your own strengths and weaknesses, and it's okay to have weaknesses. I have far too many to to elaborate on this call, but I think it's really important to really balance that with what you're trying to achieve and acknowledge, don't be too hard on yourself. I think it's really easy to be hard on oneself, whether it's body image or body mindset, etc. With the list goes on. So that's another thing I would say. And whether it's a big company, Fortune 5, Fortune 100, or a company that you're launching, right, in the hopes of an exit or an IPO, knowing your value is critically important. Because even if you don't know, someone else is going to see and know your value, and maybe not be, equitable or equal in how they value your insight or service, et cetera. So again, that was probably five things or three things than what you asked for, but that's what I say, just having been in on both sides now.
Well, thanks for sharing, Christy. I'm going to give you now a word, and I'd love your first
Yeah.
reaction to it. The
Yeah.
first one is leadership.
Yeah. When I think about leadership, I really think about moral compass. So some folks call it servant leadership, others call it moral leadership. And it takes me back again to my childhood and the foundation that really I grew from and learned about. So, um, kind of riffing off of the last question and this question, it's, whether I'm in a big corporate or small to mid to enterprise company, um, one thing that I've held with me is my moral compass, right? And not only holding myself accountable, but holding also the leaders around me accountable in how we, um, build others up, right? And empower others to grow alongside with us. So, yeah, that's what I think about when I think about leadership. It's that empathy, it's that love, it's that kindness, it's that compassion. And I've been on the receiving end of both folks that just amazingly were empathetic at really at the top of the C-suite grid to, the opposite, those that may not follow a moral or servant leadership style.
What about women's health?
Oh goodness, when I think about that, I just my heart just opens wide to I want change, right? I want more proactivity, whether it be funding. I mean, we've seen the executive order and the push not only at ARPA-H, but the executive order, right, where 100 million was allocated, tens of billion was requested, right? And you can kind of see those numbers and think to yourself, well, that sounds quite small. But the point of the matter is change is upon us. The equal importance is the follow through, right? Not just that one inflection, but the follow through of multiple inflections, where, we're not still hearing the theme of, hey, women are not little men, right? Which that's by Stacy Sims. That's not coined by myself. But in saying that, she's saying a whole lot, which is, there is a difference physiologically, and we really need to pay attention. So yeah, that's what I think of is tons more change needs to happen, and I'm feel blessed to even play a little small role in helping that change or facilitating.
No, you're playing more than a small one. What about DaVinci?
Oh, well, so many words. I mean, a lot of folks don't realize that he's the father of wearables. Granted, he didn't live in a digital era, but from an analog standpoint, he was the first to put together a step counter with pulleys and so forth. So he's an engineer, he's an artist, and contrary to his folks in his time, he, elevated women instead of sexualizing them. I'm neither saying that was right or wrong. It's just a fact of what he did. And then when I think about, what we're building in our platform of, empowering really just to be better, right? Be better for women's health. I don't know, it makes me smile, gives me, butterflies in my stomach for multiple reasons. Yeah.
The last one is spread love in organizations.
Oh, I mean, I come from a family of so much love and compassion, and it's sort of focused on, how you leave others with your words, with your actions, whether it's by faith or whether it's just by what you stand for. And so I think there's a whole lot of love through mentorship, love through allyship, love through just, wanting folks to be better if they want to be better, and giving them that that gateway, right, to be better. So I think it's a much needed. I love your podcast, and I love the message that it's conveying. I think we need more of it, especially in organizations, because we talked about moral leadership and servant leadership. The challenge to making that a reality is the ego, right, of many individuals. So the more love that we can kind of springboard off of, that naturally goes hand in glove to minimizing that ego. So, yeah, that's what I think of. We need more love in organizations.
I certainly do agree. Any final word of wisdom, Christy, for healthcare leaders?
Oh, I mean, I think pay attention to the customer, find what you're most passionate about with regards to the customer need. And out of passion, and to your previous question, love, right? That really transcends or is a mechanism for transcending any blockers that you might have, whether it be in your organization or whether it be from a regulatory standpoint, right? And we saw a lot of that, especially through COVID, right? A lot of organizations basically took their hats off of profitability. Don't get me wrong, they did make money, but the impetus and goal was, how do we save lives, right? So now if we think about today, how do we get communities, right, to embody that same sort of principle, not saving lives, but rather, which it could ripple effect into that, but like helping communities blossom. And health is a great way to make that happen, because lots of health solutions are not democratized to the majority that quite frankly need it. And thank you. Another word I would say is thank you so much for having me, Naji.
Christy, thank you for being with me today. It's really awesome to catch up and have this conversation. So thanks again for being here and for your great words. I will, what you said, help community blossom. This is powerful, and I think it's our responsibility as healthcare leaders to make that happen. So thank you again for being with me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Spread Love in Organizations podcast. Subscribe at spreadloveio.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. Together, let's inspire change and make a positive impact in healthcare, one story at a time.